This man has won the title of sexiest actor for 5 years. His name is Takado, a former child star and a popular actor. He is well regarded in the industry, almost scandal-free, and has always been goal-oriented. He aimed to become a mogul in the entertainment industry and worked hard to win the Best Actor award. To outsiders, he appears gentle yet distant. He claims not to care about such rankings, but he is actually very concerned. His manager knows him well and advised him not to worry about the rankings before getting out of the car. Unfortunately, Takado has already seen himself ranked second. The one who took the 6-year crown from him is the recent breakout newcomer, Azumaya. Moreover, Azumaya is also in the medical drama Takato is about to star in. Usually the lead, Takato has become the supporting actor, with Azumaya taking the lead role this time. Takato can't stand it and thinks about leaving right after the meeting. Azumaya comes after him to say hello, reminding him of their collaboration last year when Takado was still the lead. Back then, Takado had criticized Azumaya's acting, but now he is ready to bring his best performance to compete against Azumaya. He remains outwardly calm, but Azumaya even invites him for drinks. Takado wants to refuse, but the director doesn't give him the chance, forcing him to go along begrudgingly. It turns out to be a setup. Takado never imagined that this popular younger actor is not after his position or money, but interested in him personally. Takado wakes up in Azumaya's bed, and Azumaya shows him a video of his drunken ramblings. He pays 1,000 yen to let Azumaya call him by his first name. He warns Azumaya not to get carried away with his #1 ranking, promising to teach him as a senior. He then vomits all over Azumaya's house, a sight too dreadful to behold. However, Takado soon calms down and wonders why Azumaya recorded the video. Thinking Azumaya might be trying to blackmail him, he asks what he really wants. Is it to replace him or to gain connections? Azumaya falls into a strange silence, then blushingly says, "I want to embrace Mr. Takado." Note, the Japanese term for embrace has another meaning. Look it up yourself, the director won't explain. Just as Takado is about to be overwhelmed completely, he panics and scrambles away. But Azumaya follows him into the restroom, claiming Takado agreed to anything. Azumaya doesn't want anything else. He desires Takado himself. He keeps kissing and hugging, nearly leaving marks. Takado hits him on the head, reminding him of the next day's shoot, then seizes the chance to escape, trapping Azumaya in the restroom. Takado has seen all sorts in the entertainment industry, but he's never encountered anyone like Azumaya. The next day, Takado and Azumaya met on the set. Takado tried to act as if nothing had happened, but Azumaya's expression was off. During filming, with Takado watching, he pondered why, despite being the one taken advantage of. Azumaya's expression made it seem as if Takado had done something wrong. "Oh, you're going soft," he thought. Determined, Takado resolved to avoid any personal entanglements with Azumaya outside of work. To his surprise, Azumaya's acting was lackluster, prompting the director to suggest a break. Unable to watch any longer, Takado smiled and led Azumaya away. To Azumaya, Takado was like a master to a golden retriever, almost wagging his tail. While others saw Takado as gentle, the director knew otherwise and was right. Takado scolded Azumaya, then handed him a coffee cup as onlookers approached, earning praise from the crew. He explained to Azumaya that there are 2 kinds of acting. One involves honing skills, and the other, like Azumaya's, relies on intuitive talent. Takado belonged to the former, Azumaya to the latter. As the lead, Azumaya could afford to act freely, but he should not underestimate his own skills. Takado assured him he could match his performance. Azumaya, cheered by this, promised to do his best. Returning, the director warned Takado to be careful not to be overshadowed. Takado retorted that it was too early for Azumaya to surpass him in acting. The director then jokingly asked if Azumaya had surpassed him in other ways. Not at all, just a French kiss, quite thrilling. Their scene required Takado's character's medical skills. Azumaya instantly got into character, exploding with a dominant presence, expressing a desire for Takado, his medical skills. Takado blushed, but quickly matched the intensity, ramping up the tension on set. Takado knew from their first collaboration that Azumaya had talent. After filming, he went to help Azumaya decompress, as intuitive actors often get deeply immersed. Takato was dragged away while trying to seek help from his agent, who happily left early, unaware that his client was about to be thoroughly charmed. Azumaya was truly fond of Takato, kissing him until tears formed, wiping them away while confessing his fondness for the Drunken video. He had even been dining while watching it, his gaze enough to move Takato, let alone his handsome face. It was hard to resist the sexiest actor. Eventually, they ended up together, with Azumaya nearly overwhelming Takato. Both were top-ranked actors. What a combination. Azumaya expressed that he wanted to be number one in Takato's heart, revealing himself as Takato's biggest fan. It proved that persistence could win over an idol. They made a bet on winning the Best Actor award. If Azumaya won, Takato would recognize his talent. A career-driven love story. Since his lapse in judgment, Takato found he couldn't escape. Azumaya clung to him daily, after shoots and on the way home, even following him home. They ended up using couples' toothbrushes and cups. To others, Azumaya might appear angelic, but to Takato, he seemed like a carnivorous beast, more eager to devour Takato than any meal. Whenever Takato showed a slight weakness, the carnivorous angel would pounce. Takato, confused, found himself going along with it. Just when Takato resolved to set boundaries, Azumaya suddenly kept his distance. During a medical drama, Azumaya's acting improved dramatically, gaining popularity and even attracting Takato, though he was loath to admit it. With Azumaya not sticking around after work and failing to greet him, Takato felt uneasy. People get uncomfortable when they're deliberately ignored, right? Takato tried to dismiss it, but then Azumaya avoided him for several days, irritating him. Why play hard to get after being so clingy? Before their next scene, Takato approached Azumaya, who blushed and pushed him away, leaving Takato baffled. The director mentioned the lack of their usual closeness on set, noting the disappointment among the female actors and joking about a honeymoon phase ending, similar to a 7-year itch. Takato couldn't believe it. They weren't a couple, but he feared he might truly be disliked now. However, Azumaya had recently confessed his ambition to win Best Actor for Takato. After work, Takato sent his manager home and waited for Azumaya to talk things through. Clearly moved yet hesitant, Azumaya planned to refuse. Takato insisted on a ride home, questioning why Azumaya couldn't even look him in the eye. Azumaya's acting was poor then, obviously avoiding Takato, who suspected he was disliked. So, Takato decided to confront him in his apartment, a first for Azumaya, who tried to leave. Takato didn't let him, opting for a forceful kiss. Azumaya was shy and resisted. Takato, tired of being led, thought it was now being dumped. Damn it, let's have a breakup kiss, he thought, determined to take charge for what he believed was the last time.
高田さん、散々俺をもてあそびやがった仕返しだ。これがこいつとの最後の。最後ぐらい俺だってお前のこと好き勝手していいだろ。
Azumaya, unable to hold back at Takato's expression, kissed him and then collapsed. Takato then realized that Azumaya had been avoiding him because he had a cold and didn't want to infect him, worrying it might affect his work. Azumaya had been restraining himself from getting too close to Takato. When Takato initiated a meeting, Azumaya was actually delighted, and his sparkling eyes made Takato feel guilty, so he gave Azumaya some homemade honey. Azumaya was really happy about this, as it showed Takato cared about him. They were very affectionate, typical of a honeymoon phase. The honey wasn't even warm before it was heated up by Takato's presence. You two really know how to play around, don't you? Azumaya even insisted Takato call him by his name, which led Takato to accidentally bite his tongue and nickname him Junta. The honey seemed to sweeten not just Takato but also my mouth. The next day, Azumaya was in great spirits, while Takato suffered from back pain. He warned Azumaya to be prepared to take responsibility, which only made Azumaya happier. Oh my, can I propose then? Why don't we just live together? Takato blushed and told him to wait until he won the Best Actor award. Medical dramas are tough to act in. Takato refused to drink and rehearsed alone on the bus. Just as he was getting sleepy, Azumaya boarded the bus. That day, Takato remembered the humiliation of being eaten. What, you're playing with giant themes now? Takato was startled, thinking he had seen a hungry beast in his sleep. Azumaya took a blanket from the driver, who turned up the heat. Then he drew the curtains. allowing them to rest while he drove them home. Unbeknownst to him, while he was driving the big car, Azumaya was driving a small car in the back. Azumaya handed Takato the blanket, concerned he might catch a cold, but it felt like they were chatting across servers, with Azumaya still clinging to him. Takato wanted to remind him that attending industry dinners was important, but Azumaya said he wanted to go home with Takato. His restless hand reached for Takato's legs under the blanket. Takato called him a pervert, and Azumaya then drew the curtains. On the bus, Azumaya made advances towards Takato, who was so embarrassed he was nearly in tears. This was Azumaya's greatest temptation. When traffic jammed, and the driver was about to notify them, Takato, out of fear, buried his head in Azumaya's chest. The driver couldn't see clearly and thought Takato had fallen asleep. Azumaya said he needed to rest too, then continued his advances, leaving Takato disoriented.
Takato-san, ちゃんと気持ちよくな...
Seeing Takato's expression, Azumaya asked the driver to head to his place where they planned to discuss the script all night. Afterward, Azumaya apologized, explaining he got carried away because the shooting was ending soon, and he wouldn't see Takato as often. Takato then remembered that the medical drama was wrapping up. After filming, they still had to face media interviews. The media loved to ask tough questions, like about Takato losing the championship 5 times. They made Takato feel overwhelmed. "Brother, can't you ask about the movie instead?" He said he didn't mind, but everyone knew when Takato got emotional, he needed sweets to calm down, like drinking lots of hot cocoa now. The agent informed both of them that they had been invited by a magazine to do an interview and appear on the cover. Takato felt it was a great opportunity to promote the movie and agreed to go. Azumaya, eager to work together again, also accepted. During the shoot, their photos nearly resembled a couple's pictures. The photographer wanted to capture mature, smoking men, and though Takato wasn't skilled at smoking, he agreed as a professional actor and even gave his fans a treat by lighting up. During the interview, Takato showcased his veteran actor's presence and smoothly handled questions about not winning awards. When asked about a fiery romance experience, Takato dodged the question with a laugh, but Azumaya seriously admitted to having someone he admired and even expressed a desire to be number 1 in that person's heart. He smiled at Takato, who blushed and looked away, overwhelmed by the cheesiness. Both also finished shooting, and Takato thought the days of being entangled were over. Unexpectedly, Azumaya approached him, thanking him for guiding his acting during this period. Takato, slightly blushing, allowed him to call. Surprisingly, Azumaya said he would drive to see Takato every day, which confused Takato about his earlier statement of feeling lonely after shooting ended. Azumaya explained that not being able to be close to Takato on set made him sad, indicating his clingy days weren't over yet. Later, the medical drama movie was released and received universal praise for the actors' performances. As the award presenter, Takato personally presented Azumaya with the Best Male Actor award. Takato was slightly annoyed since the Best Supporting Actor award went to an older gentleman next door, but he acknowledged the man's talent, albeit feeling challenged by him. Azumaya couldn't help but stare at Takato, who thought he wanted cake, but Azumaya confessed he actually wanted Takato. They ended up together again. Recently, Takato's days returned to normal, though Azumaya became very busy with a new TV romance drama starring alongside the famous actress Kurokawa. Takato hummed in confusion as Azumaya had promised to visit him daily, but became so busy that he didn't even call. Just as Takato thought about this, he was confronted by Azumaya downstairs, who quickly pushed him into the car to go somewhere else. Takato noticed something was off with Azumaya, who took him to an abandoned factory. Feeling uneasy, Takato mentioned he had work the next day and needed to go home, but Azumaya didn't agree. As soon as the car arrived at the factory, Azumaya couldn't hold back anymore. Knowing all of Takato's schedules and worried about disrupting his work, he had been holding back, but now couldn't resist getting close to Takato. Takato was terrified, thinking Azumaya was angry. It's really scary when this clingy character starts to hold back. As a result, Takato was sweet-talked into obedience by the golden-haired angel without knowing how it happened. Now their relationship is more playful than ever, and they've engaged in car play more than once. However, even though they play, Azumaya had a purpose for bringing him here. He wanted Takato to see the cityscape from the mountain. He originally planned a date, but couldn't resist when he saw Takato. Takato sighed, asking Azumaya not to always hold back and then burst out, as it was too much for him. Excited, Azumaya almost pounced on Takato again and even asked him to move in together, which Takato decisively refused, amused at the idea. Although he verbally refused, Takato still ended up being taken back by Azumaya, and now Azumaya's place has many of his things. Azumaya is about to go on a location shoot and doesn't want to leave Takato. At this moment, Takato discovers a horror film he acted in 10 years ago in a corner. Azumaya admits he is scared of horror films and hasn't watched it, but really wants to see Takato from 10 years ago. Takato notices Azumaya biting his finger and feels a bad premonition, but hasn't realized the full extent of the horror yet. One day, Azumaya takes over the agent's job to drive Takato home. As the shooting ends, a junior, Narumiya, comes out, pauses at the sight of Takato, then excitedly greets him, declaring himself a big fan of Takato. Takato realizes this young man needs to grow more to be a threat to him and politely greets him. It turns out Narumiya is a student from the school Takato once attended, and the uniform has never changed. At this, Azumaya's alarms go off. Unbeknownst to Takato, his chrysanthemum crisis is approaching. Azumaya has already gotten Narumiya's spare uniform because of his handsome face, which Narumiya agreed to easily. Azumaya is happy and says he will return it washed and clean. Suddenly, Takato sneezes, feeling like someone is plotting against him. A few days later, Azumaya takes him to a classroom set and pulls out the borrowed uniform from Narumiya. Yes, this pervert wants to play with a school uniform. Takato tries to run, but Azumaya catches him and says the more he struggles, the more excited he gets. Takato gives in, and Azumaya takes the opportunity to reveal that he was scouted not just 3 years ago, but also in junior and senior high school, which he had refused. Now, he regrets not entering the industry earlier to meet a younger Takato. He really likes Takato and wants to see him in every period. With words like these, how could Takato refuse? Angrily, he takes the clothes to wear for just a while. Here he is, a 25-year-old man doing cosplay. But Azumaya loves it, absolutely loves it. Azumaya asked Takato about his middle and high school experiences. Takato said he worked and studied simultaneously during that period, managing both well and considered a talented artist. After all, any slip would lead to media exposure. Azumaya expressed his admiration for Mr. Takato, and then inquired if he had dated anyone. Takato, busy with his career, had no time for such things. Regarding his first kiss, he couldn't even recall when his first on-screen kiss was. Azumaya then moved closer to kiss Takato, suggesting he consider it his first kiss. "You spoil him too much," someone exclaimed as Azumaya also asked to be called teacher just once, which embarrassed Takato. However, Takato complied, and Azumaya remarked that enduring it once would make it easier to continue. How shameless can someone be? They wondered. Takato realized he was being played as Azumaya fully embraced the teacher role, leading to a teacher-student roleplay in the classroom. Adults sure have their ways. Takato inadvertently let slip that he had only ever engaged in such play with Azumaya, exciting Azumaya even more as he confessed the same. Showing off when they're both married, how impressive, tisk. Later, Azumaya returned the washed clothes to Narumiya, who was unaware of their history and even offered Azumaya his shorts and tracksuit. Azumaya, smiling, agreed, making Takato shiver once again. Another actor, Ayagi, had a complicated relationship with a wealthy woman and gained many opportunities through her. Meanwhile, after finishing a shoot, an exhilarated Azumaya tackled Takato, then remembered not to leave any marks that might affect the shooting. Seeing his expression, Takato felt somewhat guilty. Azumaya handed him a glass of water, mentioning he would be on location for the next few weeks while Takato was about to start rehearsals for a play, his first in a long time. However, he disliked the lead actor Ayagi, who debuted around the same time as Azumaya, but was barely acknowledged by him. Ayagi missed the first day of shooting, which angered Azumaya, who was eager to perform with Takato. It was unfortunate they couldn't take away Ayagi's role. Before parting, Azumaya gave Takato his apartment access card, hoping he would visit any time. After some thought, Takato accepted the card. On the other side, Ayagi arrived late, and his agent reminded him to be careful as the lead role was hard-won. Ayagi was indifferent, having secured the role through his business actions. His agent urged him to take it seriously, as his scenes were against Takato, and he could be overshadowed if not careful. Ayagi didn't see Takato as much of a threat. At the moment, the director was chatting with Takato about Ayagi, who had arrived late after having Takato give up the lead role. They didn't have a good impression of him. They then discussed Azumaya, and upon hearing Takato's approval of Azumaya's acting, the director decided to consider him for future roles. Ayagi appeared nonchalantly, and both the director and Takato noticed his arrival. He could clearly sense Takato's judgment of him, which annoyed him, though he casually mentioned that acting arrangements could be made easily. The director then instructed Takato and him to perform together. Takato understood that the director wanted to put the actor in his place, so he cooperated smoothly. Ayagi believed he was better suited for TV dramas and hadn't planned to seriously engage in stage acting. He wanted to assess Takato's skills, but Takato's performance completely outclassed him. Ayagi hadn't memorized the fight scenes and almost stumbled due to the slanted stage, which he hadn't expected. Takato had to catch him to prevent a fall. The director whistled, appreciating actors with both talent and temperament. Ayagi realized Takato was not as easygoing as he appeared. Back in his room, Takato drank beer and amusedly reflected on the joys of mentoring newcomers. Then, Azumaya called, seemingly knowing that Takato had finished his evening routine and was enjoying a drink. He just wanted to hear Takato's voice, which embarrassed him. The next day, they began shooting posters for the play featuring Takato. It was Ayagi's first time seeing Takato fully made up. Takato's long hair and stunning appearance caught Ayagi's attention. During a close-up fight scene, Ayagi noticed Takato's long eyelashes. Takato whispered to him to bring out his best performance, warning him not to be overshadowed. Ayagi generally disliked troublesome shoots, but Takato's provocation made him showcase his acting skills. Takato didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed, praising Ayagi for finally showing his potential. Even Ayagi's agent was impressed by this side of him. At that moment, Ayagi overheard the staff discussing how Takato had been voted the sexiest actor for 5 consecutive years, noting his impressive looks. Ayagi's interest piqued. He wanted to see what such a respected senior looked like when humiliated. Meanwhile, Takato hadn't seen Azumaya for 4 days and planned to message him. Just then, Ayagi burst in, seeking advice for the play. Takato agreed to discuss the script with him. He said he'd change clothes first, not suspecting Ayagi's intentions. But Ayagi, discovering Takato's sensitivity, became even more spirited. Luckily, the director interrupted, inviting them for drinks. Takato suggested they could talk over drinks if there were any issues. Ayagi thought Takato might let his guard down in a crowd, so he deliberately urged him to drink at the party, getting Takato drunk. However, when drunk, Takato would start doing odd things, such as crazily peeling edamame without sharing any with him. But everyone else was used to it and even found it amusing, like a traditional comedy show. After drinking, Takato would seriously offer advice to juniors. Knowing Ayagi was also a naturally talented actor, Takato seemed eager to help. He earnestly told Ayagi not to waste his talent and promised to help him polish his acting skills during this stage play, urging him to seize the opportunity for change. Ayagi was momentarily stunned and clicked his tongue, slightly moved, but stubbornly said Takato was annoying. After the party, Ayagi pretended to walk Takato home, but ended up taking him to a hotel. Although not interested in men, Ayagi was somewhat intrigued by Takato. Thinking this, he bit Takato's neck, leaving a kiss mark. Meanwhile, Azumaya couldn't get through to Takato on the phone and was almost ready to lose his cool. Laughing, Ayagi prepared for a big meal when he heard Takato calling out, "Junta." Wondering who Junta was, he saw Takato's phone ringing and answered it, finding out Junta was a man. Without hesitation, Ayagi told Junta that Takato was sleeping right beside him and suggested Junta ask Takato himself about what happened. After hanging up, the howling typhoon outside almost matched Azumaya's darkening mood. Waking up with a severe headache, Takato initially thought Junta had returned. To his shock, he found himself in bed with Ayagi, both undressed. Why were they in a hotel, and why was there a torn plastic bag on the bed? In disbelief, Takato rushed home. Checking his phone, he saw that Azumaya had been calling him all night. Instinctively, he texted back, claiming he had been discussing the play and hadn't seen the calls. Recalling what Ayagi had said while drunk, his thoughts were interrupted by a call from Azumaya asking about the previous night. Unaware that Ayagi had already spoken with him, Takato lied about rehearsing, angering Junta. Seeing the kiss mark on his shoulder, Takato grew increasingly distressed. At the stage play rehearsal, Ayagi purposely teased him, further dampening his spirits. Unexpectedly that afternoon, Azumaya returned to Tokyo and went to the stage rehearsal. He recognized Ayagi's voice as he walked past and entered a dark mood, demanding to know his name. Ayagi realized this was the Junta from the phone. Takato, stepping out, showed disbelief. Azumaya wasn't supposed to be back from location shooting yet. Approaching, Azumaya grabbed Takato's hand, intending to take him home but feared he might not be able to resist locking him up. Ayagi watched, sweating, wondering who had ever called this guy an angel. Azumaya was really angry and dragged his wife into the bathroom. Seeing the kiss mark made him even angrier, exclaiming that even he hadn't kissed there. While showering Takato, he asked how far things had gone. Takato, clueless and having been drunk to the point of losing consciousness, had no idea. He thought that no one except Giunta would be interested in him, but Azumaya made him look in the mirror at his shy, flustered expression, saying any man would want to make him cry. Confused, Takato protested, asserting he was straight and just looking, urging Azumaya not to make false accusations. Azumaya, furious, even threatened Takato, warning him not to run away from the bed or he wouldn't chase after him again. "Big brother, Takato is the victim here, and he doesn't like anyone else, just you." Azumaya retorted that if he had known others would leave marks, he would have covered Takato with his own first. The next morning, a bullied Takato woke up to find Giunta not by his side. Meanwhile, Ayagi had been rehearsing seriously. As soon as he stepped out, Azumaya cornered him for a talk. Azumaya bluntly stated he believed Ayagi hadn't embraced Takato. Ayagi admitted this was true. He had been in the mood until a phone call interrupted him, and after Takato fell asleep, he kept calling out, "Junta." Although shameless, Ayagi insisted he wouldn't take advantage of such a vulnerable Takato. However, letting Takato off without any fun seemed too boring, so he purposely faked tearing a small plastic bag to scare him. Ayagi mentioned he'd be happy to take over Takato if Azumaya ever broke up with him, as he hadn't met someone so appealing in a long time. Just then, Azumaya asked Ayagi about rumors of him being a gigolo. Ayagi nonchalantly confirmed, noting his high-profile clients wouldn't leave any substantial evidence unless Azumaya also wanted to talk with his body. Azumaya said that was enough for him. Ayagi declared his intent to pursue Takato, but Azumaya countered that no matter who it was, he would never let go. Takato belonged to him for life. He warned Ayagi to be thankful he was the lead this time. Otherwise, he would have ruined him already. If Ayagi dared to have any ill intentions towards Takato again, he wouldn't be lenient next time. Ayagi clicked his tongue, not knowing why he had gotten so agitated, just feeling annoyed. At that moment, Azumaya received a message from Takato, saying he was waiting at his house. Takato mentioned he hadn't used the access card he received and suggested using it once before returning it. Azumaya asked if returning the card was his real intention for coming. Takato admitted he liked Azumaya. Without a word, Azumaya kissed him. Takato said he never intended to have that kind of encounter with Ayagi. Azumaya confirmed that nothing happened between Takato and Ayagi, which greatly relieved Takato. However, Azumaya, while stroking Takato's hair, declared that no matter who falls for Takato in the future, he will never let go, as he has become obsessively attached. Although surrounded by fans, Takato had never experienced such intense affection and felt a bit scared. Yet he admitted that he might not get used to it if Junta ever let go. "You guys chat, but why did you end up together again?" Takato did not let Junta cover the kiss mark left by Ayagi but agreed to let it stay in an inconspicuous place. Junta, being provocative, played tricks and pretended to be asleep the next morning. Hesitant, Takato asked if they should move in together. Junta immediately woke up, excited to live together, and said he would start looking for a house, insisting Takato declare his affection again. When Takato went to the theater, he also confronted Ayagi. After realizing it was just a prank, he kicked Ayagi's knee. Though angry, he did not displace his anger. Unaware of Ayagi's feelings, because Junta told Takato that Ayagi had no friends and had been dumped by a lover, feeling lonely and hence clinging to him, Takato didn't think Ayagi was truly interested in him. He suggested they could compete in acting on stage, but warned Ayagi to be careful not to be overshadowed by his performance. Ayagi was about to express his genuine interest in pursuing Takato when Narumiya appeared. Under Azumaya's influence, their troupe performed flawlessly. Narumiya was there because Azumaya asked him to deliver something to Ayagi, supposedly a cute little recorder. Upon playing it, the message said, "Ayagi, heard you're keeping company?" Scared, Ayagi immediately grabbed it, but Takato didn't catch it clearly. Narumiya was clueless about what keeping company meant, and Ayagi, frustrated, ran off with the recorder. Meanwhile, gossip magazine journalist Hasegawa was tasked by the editor to dig up stories on celebrities who usually stay out of scandals. He pulled out photos of Takato and Azumaya. Hasegawa criticized the editor for targeting innocent people, but the editor reminded him that this was their livelihood. Hasegawa reluctantly took on the assignment. Azumaya had little interest in the world, as his life had been too smooth. Initially indifferent about the entertainment industry, his perspective changed when he first saw Takato on set. From their first meeting, Azumaya felt evaluated by Takato. They were acting in a drama about an inspirational love story where Azumaya played the female lead's childhood friend, and Takato played a perfumer with a vision impairment. Azumaya was praised during his first acting role, but noticed Takato's unfriendly gaze, despite his smile. As a producer dressed flamboyantly approached a female actor with inappropriate intentions, Azumaya knew intervening might jeopardize his career, but still wanted to help. However, it was Takato who first stepped up to stop the producer, his cold demeanor off-screen transforming into a gentle one on-screen, captivating Azumaya with his nearly perfect performance. After the shoot, the producer tried to chat with Takato, but Takato found him annoying and dismissed him. The producer, unable to confront the high-profile Takato, left embarrassed, blaming the actress for Takato's displeasure. The actress apologized to the director, who said Takato acted deliberately to stop the producer from nitpicking everyone. The director admitted he was too timid to do it himself. From then on, Azumaya started noticing Takato. After the shoot, he saw Takato hadn't left and was calling his agent, asking to send desserts to the actresses to ease the awkward atmosphere on set. Azumaya thought he was a kind person, as beautiful as a painting. Then, he saw Takato hang up angrily and scold the producer. Azumaya found his different reactions offstage adorable. Suddenly, he heard Takato mentioning his own name, saying he hadn't seen someone so bothersome in a long time. Azumaya thought he was disliked, but still approached Takato, mentioning he was new. Up close, he noticed Takato's long eyelashes casting shadows on his eyelids. Azumaya expressed his happiness to act with Takato, only for Takato to change his expression and promise to give his all in their scenes. Azumaya felt as if Takato's hand wasn't on his shoulder but on his chest, making his heart pound loudly. Afterward, Azumaya began to pay attention to Takato's works, curious about the origin of his acting skills. At the end of the next shoot, Azumaya noticed Takato looked disdainful. They met on the shuttle bus, and Azumaya didn't know how to start a conversation but ended up sitting next to him by mistake. Alone together, he wanted to ask if he had annoyed him. Just then, Takato suddenly recited lines from their scene, saying, "I like him, I want to stay by his side." Azumaya felt emotional, even though it was the same line. Facing Takato felt like the longing childhood friend in the drama. He instinctively wanted to embrace Takato but controlled himself. Takato then told him his acting would improve if he didn't stick to the script and not waste his talent. After speaking, he said he wanted to rest. Azumaya felt even more puzzled, feeling led by Takato. In the afternoon scene between the childhood friend and the lead, Azumaya's acting improved dramatically due to Takato's advice. But then, the rain machine suddenly exploded, and Azumaya instinctively protected Takato from the water. Looking down, he saw Takato's frightened expression and heard his trembling voice. Azumaya's heartbeat quickened, and the colors in his vision intensified. He almost kissed Takato, but then the crew rushed over. Takato pushed Azumaya away, asking the crew to take care of him, and escaped first. Azumaya knew he would have kissed Takato if there were no staff around. He began to watch Takato's TV shows obsessively. He realized his feelings were more than just a desire to kiss. He almost wanted to devour Takato and saw his own lustful expression. Azumaya dared not think whether Takato had seen that expression. Maybe it would make Takato dislike him even more? After arriving on set, Azumaya's acting was explosive. He heard Takato opening medicine and instinctively asked if he was sick. Takato seemed scared and reflexively pushed his hand away after being approached. Though it hurt, Azumaya felt happy at the moment of touch. He forced himself into the elevator with Takato, who apologized for pushing his hand away. Azumaya saw that Takato was unwell and wanted to support him, but he knew Takato might not want him close. However, when he saw Takato collapse from a fever, he rushed to help. Then, he took the feverish Takato to the hospital. At the same time, Azumaya realized how much he liked Takato and decided not to give up pursuing him. If the agent hadn't arrived in time, he might have kissed him. Azumaya asked the agent not to tell Takato that he was the one who took him to the hospital. The agent was surprised, realizing Azumaya had feelings too. He quietly told Azumaya that Takato rarely dislikes actors and might actually value him. Azumaya felt conflicted but couldn't hide his joy. He planned to replace his motorcycle to avoid calling a taxi at crucial moments. With the shooting about to end, Azumaya resolved that this wouldn't be their last meeting. Before their next collaboration, he wanted to become someone worthy of Takato. The medical drama seemed like a coincidental meeting, but it was Azumaya's long-planned scheme. From the moment they met in the conference room, he had set the trap. Ah, so thrilling. I can't wait for the next episode. Takato had just finished shooting in Hawaii and planned to enjoy a 2-day vacation, but he ended up being caught by Azumaya, the little pervert. Azumaya said it was a chance encounter. Takato didn't think so. Those who watched the previous episodes might think the same. Then, a couple mentioned they wanted to buy something for their wedding anniversary. Azumaya heard them and asked Takato to wait, then walked over. Coincidentally, Ayagi was brought to Hawaii by a wealthy woman for a post-event trip. He sighed, wondering when he could stop being a companion. Unexpectedly, Narumiya appeared behind him at this moment. Just as Azumaya handed the souvenir to Takato, he heard Narumiya and Ayagi arguing nearby. Now the encounters seemed too coincidental. Takato and Azumaya were there for work. Narumiya was on a school trip and had just lost his friends. As for Ayagi, he claimed he was there for closure and had reformed. He quietly told Takato that Azumaya was dangerous and suggested staying with him instead. Takato said he had no friends and dismissed him, while Narumiya sympathized. Azumaya smiled discreetly, keeping his achievements hidden. Seeing this, Ayagi, unwilling to let Azumaya have a smooth date, tricked Takato into playing volleyball instead of going on a date. While playing, he accidentally knocked Takato down. Seeing Takato's disheveled clothes, Ayagi became eager. At that moment, Junta pressed a recorder behind him. Ayagi exploded in anger. Damn! How many recorders do you have? Everyone continued playing volleyball, and Azumaya pretended to fetch the ball and feigned danger. He then tricked Takato into coming over and pulled out a prepared date itinerary. You say it's a chance encounter. Who believes that? Seeing Takato's heart flutter, Azumaya whisked him away. The other two were left hanging. Narumiya finally found his teammates. They had no particular destination in mind until they heard a newlywed couple mention a highly rated spot. They immediately became interested. Meanwhile, Azumaya took Takato to see dolphins. While Takato watched the dolphins, Azumaya kept staring at Takato, even planning to steal a kiss. However, Narumiya's group spotted them, forcing Takato to push Azumaya away and join Narumiya's group for a photo. After sending them off, Azumaya took Takato to the next spot. Ayagi, unable to reach the wealthy woman, decided to follow the nearby newlyweds. He interrupted Takato and Azumaya's date again, but ended up saving a wealthy woman's dog from fire during a circus show, earning everyone's praise. The next day, the two surfed at the beach. Takato didn't mention he couldn't swim. Though he managed to stand up, he was nearly swept away by a wave. Azumaya wanted to give mouth-to-mouth, but as Takato woke up, he asked for a kiss. Narumiya and Ayagi kept appearing, pushing Azumaya to his limits. During a dinner later, Azumaya decided to act alone, and everyone pretended to agree. Azumaya led them to a deserted island. The scenery was beautiful, but they couldn't return due to the rising tide and no cell signal. However, Azumaya was happy to be alone with him, although they might have to spend the night on the island. Azumaya said it was okay, he was prepared. With a small knife, he arranged everything. He had previously worked on a deserted island. Seeing Takato cold, he hugged him and pulled out 2 symmetrical flowers he found. Takato had heard a local legend about these flowers, representing lovers who fled from a jealous fire god to the mountains and sea. Azumaya earnestly said it was a pity they weren't together. "If it were me, I'd do anything to be with Takato," he said, then resumed his advances. "Damn, you're definitely doing this on purpose," Takato said, expressing no desire for an outdoor play. But what choice did he have? None at all. After returning to their country, Takato was very angry because he only learned from his agent that Azumaya had planned the deserted island incident in advance and had even informed his agent about it. Smart move. I've been played. However, their photos upon returning were taken by Hasegawa. But as the saying goes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. A producer who happened to be passing by noticed them because of Hasegawa's action. Takato, born lucky, has been popular all his life from childhood to adulthood. He is aware of this and proud, but he must be modest during interviews. Takato entered the industry because of his grandmother, who was a stage actress. Though his career has been smooth, he once puzzled over someone telling him, "I like you, even if you hate me." Takato cannot remember who said it. Later, Takato met with the company president, who had watched him grow up and felt Takato was overworking, suggesting he take some time off. The president mentioned that a partner in Hawaii had sent red wine as a thank you gift. Takato decided to take the wine to Azumaya, but ended up being eaten himself. Takato also remembers the first time he met Azumaya and had judged his physique, recognizing him as top talent. Unfortunately, he didn't know what his goal was. Despite having talent, there was no place to show it. As a senior, Takato decided he must show this young man his strength. Unexpectedly, when a sprinkler burst, he saw another side of Azumaya and pushed him away, hiding in a car, trembling. He didn't believe he had been overpowered. Determined, he took on more work to solidify his strength and ended up with a fever from overwork. Azumaya found out he was feverish. Honestly, Takato was unwilling to be distracted by Azumaya and felt he must not lose, leading him to overdo it and faint, ending up in the hospital. He clearly remembers the voice of the person who confessed to him, not seeing their face. Now facing Azumaya, Takato realized that it was him who had confessed. The more he thought about it, the more his face flushed and his heartbeat quickened. He realized he couldn't escape it from the moment he saw that look. Perhaps it was destined from their first meeting. Indeed, it was the author who tied their fate. Takato slept deeply, dreaming of his grandmother who told him his acting was solid, but he hadn't yet put his heart into it. She suggested that he should act when he has gained more emotions, which could take his skills to the next level. Junta called because they both had work with the head office soon. Takato said, "No touching for now." Today was the opening of his and Ayagi's stage drama about autumn leaves and ghosts. His grandmother used to watch his plays, and the producer of this drama was Kazuomi, the one who noticed the paparazzi earlier. At this moment, the stage play officially began, and Takato prepared to act seriously and calmly. However, he couldn't help but think of Azumaya's face during the performance. It wasn't that he couldn't concentrate. In fact, his emotions were even more intense than before. He even fully immersed himself into the character's emotions. After collapsing, Ayagi noticed that Takato was too engrossed and worried about his stamina, but Takato told Ayagi to let go. Takato is typically a cool and rational actor, but at this moment, he felt ignited inside. This emotional outburst was largely because Azumaya was there, inspiring him. Thus, his performance carried the genuine emotions his grandmother spoke of. After the shoot, the applause was thunderous, and Takato thought he saw his grandmother in the crowd. Red Leaf Ghost became his latest representative work. Takato wanted to ask his agent who had taken him to the hospital when he was feverish. The agent was about to tell him when Azumaya called, saying he was coming to kidnap Takato, and the agent actually agreed. Azumaya said it was a pity to miss the first performance. Takato promised to reserve a seat for him next time, but before that, Azumaya must perform well. He also knew that it was Azumaya who had taken care of him, and planned to choose a day to respond to Azumaya's affections. It was just tsundere, and he could say it now if he wanted. When Takato realized that liking someone was an irrational emotion, he was already too deep in to escape. It was the last day of the play, and Azumaya was there. Although Ayagi made several mistakes today, His efforts over the period were evident. Takato recognized Ayagi's acting skills. Moved, Ayagi was about to confess his feelings when Azumaya suddenly grabbed his hand. Takato went to change clothes, and Azumaya slipped in and locked the door, clearly still interested in Takato's stage makeup. Azumaya approached and mentioned the play was over. Takato realized his hands were burning hot and shyly agreed to a kiss. Unfortunately, Azumaya was the type to take a mile if given an inch and tricked him about the unlocked door, saying someone could come in at any moment. Just as things were escalating, a staff member's voice was heard outside, but they quickly left. When Takato went out, he saw that Junta had already posted a "Do Not Disturb" sign. At this moment, they both received a call from their agent about a sequel to the medical drama, allowing them to work together again. Azumaya immediately hugged Takato in excitement. The producer for the sequel is Kazuomi, who had worked with Takato many times since his childhood. They have always had a good relationship. However, Kazuomi is very strict, especially about actors, and does not tolerate any scandal. Recently, a female role was photographed on a date with her lover. Kazuomi warned Takato to be careful not to slip up and asked if he had a good relationship with Azumaya. Takato said he was just being pursued by Azumaya, but Kazuomi noticed that Takato seemed to have a more mature charm lately. Azumaya's boss really likes him. In fact, he had trained many male stars before, but none could match Takato. Just as their company was about to go under, Azumaya, who was delivering food at the time, became their new gem. After getting close to Takato, Azumaya's acting improved dramatically. The boss had mixed feelings about Takato and warned Azumaya to avoid scandals recently, as they could lead to being replaced by the director. Azumaya understood and went to meet Takato, who accidentally stepped into thin air and fell down the stairs, only to be caught by Azumaya. This scene was secretly photographed by paparazzi. Azumaya quickly sensed something was off and hurried Takato away. Hasegawa, sweating profusely, almost got caught. Azumaya's instincts were too sharp. However, frequently catching the two together made Hasegawa suspicious, and he planned to keep following them. Takato noticed that Azumaya had been less clingy lately, and Hasegawa also noticed they weren't as close as before. Then, by trading favors, he got a key to their building from the manager. "Really, Ms. Manager, aren't you picky?" Hasegawa followed them into the building and unexpectedly hit the jackpot. Takato, unaware of being photographed, thought Azumaya was up to no good and tugged at his clothes, but Azumaya couldn't resist and kissed him. Did they just give the paparazzi a scoop? Later, Takato was still thinking about collaborating with Azumaya. Azumaya's acting was especially good when he performed with the famous actress Kurokawa. Takato was eager to see how far he could develop and wanted to push Azumaya further, but he didn't plan to lose to him in acting. However, now, he also had to consider their shared living arrangement. Azumaya had picked out co-living houses for them, letting Takato choose his favorite, clearly looking forward to living together. Before Takato could finish feeling shy, he received a call from his agent. The boss, due to his connections, already knew that a magazine about Takato was going to be published soon. Unfortunately, they were too late to stop its release. The magazine showed Takato being caught as he fell down the stairs, without Azumaya's face visible. Sure enough, Kazuomi informed Takato that he was being dropped from the drama series. But then, Azumaya burst into the meeting room, claiming that the other person in the photo was him, and that he was merely helping Takato, who had missed his step. Kazuomi said whether it was a scandal was for others to judge. Was Takato leaving the drama, and was the lead actor planning to leave too? At this moment, Takato disapproved, and Azumaya had to act according to Takato's reactions. Before leaving, Kazuomi told Takato to consider his and Azumaya's futures for their own good. Takato decided to go back alone, but ran into the sneaky Hasegawa in a corner. Takato remarked that it was a waste for someone with such skills to be snooping. Hasegawa pulled out a photo of the two kissing that he hadn't yet sold to the magazines. He planned to keep Takato as a contact to take more photos, so he advised Takato to think it over. Takato watched all of Azumaya's recent TV dramas at home. He was impressed by the boy's acting and felt such talent shouldn't be wasted. So he decided to meet Azumaya at the place they had looked over before. Azumaya confessed that it was there he had realized his feelings for Takato. However, Takato had also made up his mind and proposed a breakup, not wanting to hinder Azumaya's future acting career. Azumaya naturally disagreed, believing Takado was hiding something. Although Takado didn't reveal anything, he offered Azumaya one last moment together. They ended up at a small inn, where Azumaya refused to let go, and the night ended with no confessions from Takado. The next morning, Azumaya offered to take Takado home. Halfway there, Takado asked to get out of the car to avoid burdening him further, and stopped using the name Junta. After getting out, he immediately called Hasegawa and agreed to let him take other photos. Rumors about Takado spread wider. Some felt it was a shame, while others were disappointed. Azumaya's company president, who often criticized Takado, also felt conflicted as Takado had indeed improved Azumaya's acting. The president loved and hated him for this. A photographer who spoke with the president felt it was a pity, noting the relationship between the two. Although the president was firm about not easily letting Azumaya go, the photographer recognized the style of the person who took the photos and regretted such talent being wasted on sneaky jobs. Upon hearing this, Azumaya asked the photographer for information about this person and immediately began his own plan. Meanwhile, Takado finished his on-site shooting. The crew whispered among themselves but didn't dare approach him directly. The producer previously scolded by Takado approached him and accidentally broke a souvenir from Hawaii that Azumaya had given to Takado. As Takado hesitated, Kazuomi stepped forward, claiming the item was his, which made the producer return it trembling. Kazuomi handed the pendant back to Takado and suggested they have a private talk. On the other hand, Azumaya's agent called the president, reporting that Azumaya's performance was explosive. He not only didn't disrupt the shoot, but even overshadowed the lead actor Kurokawa's performance, which shocked the director and others. After the shoot, Kurokawa praised Azumaya's acting. Unexpectedly, Azumaya took her hand and asked for acting advice with a serious and heartfelt expression, making everyone on set blush. Takado and Kazuomi talked for a long time and even got drunk. When he sobered up, Kazuomi was speechless, saying, "Big brother, you really know how to make a scene, huh?" However, when they discussed the scandal, Kazuomi mentioned that despite searching the entire entertainment industry, he couldn't find an actor better than Takado, and still hadn't found a replacement. He couldn't bear to think about what would happen to Azumaya, the lead actor, under such circumstances. Takado said nothing would happen, and revealed that he made a deal with the photographer. As long as Takado allowed him to take good photos, he wouldn't release the kissing photos. Kazuomi called his plan foolish, noting that Takado didn't even know the specific demands of the photographer. Takado guessed it might involve taking nude photos, which he didn't mind as a man, but it could make it harder for him to land leading and positive roles in the future. Kazuomi then pushed him, asking if he had considered that he might be asked to sell his body. "Oh no, in this drama, is everything bent except for the steel poles?" Takado wanted to say he was prepared, but he was actually trembling all over. Kazuomi, who had watched him grow up and had always worked with him since childhood, would never harm him. He asked Takado if it was worth it. Takado replied that he couldn't let Azumaya's acting talent be squandered and didn't mind sacrificing himself. Kazuomi felt helpless and asked if his 20 years were wasted. Meanwhile, the editor-in-chief of Fuyuban magazine was talking with Hasegawa, knowing that Hasegawa had even more explosive news. Hasegawa denied it, but the editor said he understood that Hasegawa hadn't been corrupted by the industry yet. Hasegawa refused to admit it, saying he was just trying to earn a living. The editor shook his head and left, but Hasegawa had actually been a fan before, later taking photos of his idol cheating. He always felt guilty, believing he had become as dirty as the industry. Just then, Azumaya approached him and saw the kissing photos of Takado and himself. Hasegawa thought it was Takado who had told Azumaya, but Azumaya said Takado hadn't mentioned anything. After seeing the photos, Azumaya also commented that Hasegawa's skills were too good to be wasted on paparazzi work, reminding him of Takado's words. Azumaya expressed his desire not to let the photo leak, especially since his current partner would be jealous of seeing him intimate with his ex. Hasegawa frowned, wondering which rumors were true. Azumaya nodded, indicating he was always open to Hasegawa following him. Hasegawa had heard rumors that actress Kurokawa and her close male friends wore matching rings. He sighed. "Takado, are you protecting such a scumbag?" At the same time, Ayagi saw the magazine and approached Takado, only to learn of their breakup. He could tell Takato was suppressing his sadness and was obviously pretending to be strong. Angry, Ayagi confronted Azumaya asking, "Didn't you say you'd never let go of Takato no matter what?" Right after, he saw Azumaya and Kurokawa leave together ambiguously. Ayagi felt annoyed and also suspected Azumaya was plotting something. Takato found out that Hasegawa hadn't contacted him and worried he might leak information, so he approached him proactively. He learned from Hasegawa that the contract had been terminated because Azumaya had found a new partner and had even hinted as much to him himself. Thus, the information about Takato and Azumaya was outdated. Hasegawa commented that it was good, as at least Takato didn't have to sacrifice himself for a jerk. After returning, Takato was angry and tried his best to clear the air for him. However, he ended up making headlines with Kurokawa, who was often in gossip magazines. This surely undermined his own career. But Takato also felt foolish. He had initiated the breakup without considering that Azumaya might be with someone else. He buried his head in the pillow, feeling that Azumaya would no longer touch him.
あいつにまた触れてほしい。あいつの手はもっと大きくて、もっと硬くて、もっと。あいつの手はもう俺に触れることはない。
Recently, the continuous heavy rain mirrored Takato's mood. His agent took him to sign a new contract because of Takato's previous popularity and professionalism, which many in the industry admired. Thus, there were no issues with the contract. Seeing that Takato was in a low mood, his agent invited him over for takoyaki, asking if he would come. Takato joined, mainly wanting to see the agent's daughter, a very cute little girl since her mother was a former idol. Seeing the agent and his wife being affectionate, Takato remembered his time living with Azumaya. The little girl noticed his lonely expression and offered comfort. Later, when the child fell asleep, the agent took her away. Takato asked the agent's wife what it was like to wear a wedding ring, as she had left the entertainment industry to marry the agent. The wife described it as a commitment made with the intent to be happy with that person. The agent then joined Takato for a chat. He had known about Takato and Azumaya's relationship. Takato revealed that he had initiated the breakup. Having worked for many years, he had never seen talent like Azumaya's. He had planned to protect him and was prepared to be hated. Now he realized he wasn't ready to part ways. The agent told him that sometimes there's more than one choice to make. He felt Takato had become more charismatic since meeting Azumaya. Whatever path Takato chose, he would help him find the best fit. As the rain fell harder, the agent hoped it would stop soon. After saying goodbye to the agent, Takato left. Unexpectedly, a few days later, while leaving work, Takato saw Azumaya chatting happily with Kurokawa in the elevator. Takato quietly put away the ugly pendant but didn't refuse to share the elevator with Azumaya. The two were close again, and Azumaya suddenly turned around and said, "Takato, showing such a lonely expression to an ex is quite unfair." Seeing the pendant in Takato's hand, he almost couldn't help but jump on him. Breaking up, huh? Just a lover's trick. When Azumaya left, he began taking suppressants again. His and Kurokawa's autumn drama concluded with the final scene of the last episode, marking the end of the story and the beginning of Azumaya's counterattack. Kurokawa commented that his angelic face full of vigor was about to do something bad. Narumiya also came over, saying that the media was waiting outside. Subsequently, news spread about a misreport in Fuyubun magazine. Both the official website and the actors involved in the shoot posted on social media, stating that the photos of Azumaya and Kurokawa taken by Fuyubun magazine were misleading. Staff were present at the scene, deliberately misleading readers. This revelation led many to doubt the magazine's exposé, and the rumors about Takato's romance were also questioned. Takato and his agent received the news, and the agent joyfully turned on a live interview featuring Azumaya. During the interview, the host asked about the romantic relationship between the two actors. Azumaya and Kurokawa explained that they decided to act as a couple to enhance their performances after consulting with the director. This approach proved effective. Azumaya also revealed during the live stream that it was he who was with Takato in the previously leaked photo. The agent laughed heartily, while Takato was utterly stunned. Azumaya explained that the photo was actually of Takato accidentally missing a step and falling down the stairs, which he caught. Despite Takato's usually reliable demeanor, he could be a bit clumsy. Kurokawa agreed, mentioning he had seen Takado trip over equipment in a corner. This unexpected revelation surprised everyone, especially when Azumaya added that he had planned to move in with Takado. The reporter exclaimed, "Wow, what a bombshell!" Azumaya smiled and said he greatly respected Takado and wanted to learn from him. The reporter responded, "Oh, that's fantastic." Alongside Takado's good character and talent, many in the entertainment industry came forward to share anecdotes of Takado's natural dorkiness, leading to a surge in his popularity. The agent teased Takado, saying someone had taken the initiative to move in with him. Takado, determined, asked his agent to take him somewhere to think things through. Meanwhile, Hasegawa and the editor also saw the news. The editor, realizing they had been misled, wasn't upset. In fact, he planned to leave the industry, feeling it was a waste of Hasegawa's talents, and decided to recommend him for a photographer position at an art gallery, looking forward to his future work. As for himself, the editor planned to resign and become a food blogger, enjoying a happier life now that the magazine's relevance had plummeted. Hasegawa thanked the editor for his support and expressed a desire to properly photograph Azumaya and his partner, rather than resorting to stealth. Azumaya returned the prop ring to Kurokawa, who had often been the subject of Fuyubun magazine's exposés. He was happy to cooperate in the ruse. However, unexpectedly, Takado came to pick up Azumaya. Seeing the couple's hesitant demeanor, Kurokawa waved the ring, signaling that Azumaya was welcome to pursue something genuine anytime. But Takado refused, as he had already put a new ring on Azumaya, purchased from a jewelry store, and declared Azumaya officially his. Azumaya had been holding back, and as soon as he entered, he bit him. He knew Takado must have made a deal with the reporters, so he had no choice but to take drastic measures. Takado was also angry, not wanting Azumaya's talents to be tainted. Azumaya said he didn't need protection, just as Takado didn't want his own talents to disappear. For Azumaya, Takado was everything, the person he cared about the most. The couple wasn't really arguing, they were just being clingy. Takado asked Azumaya if he had gotten serious with Kurokawa during their act. He expressed that he didn't want Azumaya to be with anyone else, as he really liked Azumaya. Damn, too much sugar and meat. It's a bit greasy. Let's watch something light to cleanse the palate. Azumaya said he would never let go of Takado. He stated that Kurokawa was just helping with the promotion and there was nothing between them. The only person he liked was Takado. Time for an insulin shot. Remembering the flower on the small island, Azumaya felt they must still be together. The two messed around all day, and after waking up, Takado also put on a ring. Azumaya was happy because he hadn't expected Takado to remember his ring size. Then he took Takado's ring, which made a clanging sound. Azumaya had engraved a line inside Takado's ring, the content of which he kept secret. Takado grew more suspicious of Azumaya, accusing him of cleaning up after the paparazzi. Azumaya seriously stated that no one should secretly photograph Takado except himself. Later, Hasegawa found out he had been secretly photographed and investigated. He knew it was Junta's doing and found him quite scary. But at that moment, the two received a call from Kazuomi. Kazuomi said the scandal had died down and they hadn't found a substitute for the medical drama yet. However, their reputations were still somewhat affected. So, to help them perform well in this drama, Kazuomi decided to arrange a dual lead stage play for them to reclaim their good image. Kazuomi left smiling, only to encounter an old lover outside the door. Takato told Azumaya that their cohabitation had to be postponed. They needed to perform well in the current stage play. After all, work is most important. Christmas was coming soon, and Azumaya happily started preparing. Takato was usually busy working and almost forgot about Christmas. But Azumaya knew his schedule was lighter this year, so he was looking forward to spending Christmas with Takato. Then, Takato found out that Azumaya had become the #1 man women wanted to spend Christmas with. And he was ranked second? Takato couldn't stand it and declared he would prepare for this Christmas. He must show Azumaya that he is the #1. Then, because he was too busy with work, he completely forgot about this. When he realized, Christmas was about to start. The photographer said Takato was getting more attractive and wished him a Merry Christmas. Takato almost forgot completely. He decided to blend in with the crowd and secretly inquire about Christmas. But if Takato had to choose, He preferred the scene from a TV drama he had filmed before, where the protagonist walks through the crowd with his lover to a big screen, and the screen displays blessings and confessions to the lover. Unexpectedly, someone nearby did something similar. "Damn, isn't that the student council president? You're guest starring too?" The student council president said yes, he has 2 partners. "Don't ask me why I know," a friend told me. The president's 2 partners said such a confession was too cheesy, only something a virgin would think of. Takato and the president were both taken aback. Huh? Both agreed that no matter how the president prepared, he was the best gift. Seeing their mischievous smiles, the president instinctively stepped back, bumping into Takato's chair. Takato stood up to say goodbye, and the president thought he looked very handsome. However, the couple noticed that Takato already had someone. Takato's agent also knew about his plans for Christmas. He felt that what mattered was the sentiment, and then asked Takato what time he had planned. Takato was shocked. I need to schedule a time." Being so busy, he didn't even know where Azumaya was and couldn't reach him by phone. The agent decided to accompany him in searching for Azumaya. However, Azumaya was neither at the company nor at the place where they first met. Instead, Takato ran into Kazuomi there. After hearing the story, Kazuomi asked what Takato had prepared for Christmas. Pretending nothing was wrong, Takato asked Kazuomi what he wanted for Christmas. Kazuomi remembered his lover, coughed, and said he wanted a better career path. The agent asked Takato what Azumaya liked, and that's when Takato realized he didn't really know Azumaya well. As the evening fell, the agent got a call from his daughter asking where he was. Not wanting to disrupt their Christmas, Takato sent the agent home. At home, Takato found many magazines and photos related to him at Azumaya's place, which explained why Azumaya knew him so well. Takato stood up, deciding to take a taxi to find Azumaya. He must find him today. As Takato left in the car, Hasegawa caught a photo of him. He was surprised to see Takato out alone today, but soon smiled at the photo, realizing he wasn't alone. Takato couldn't find Azumaya after looking around, and overheard Narumiya saying that a friend who hadn't prepared for Christmas got dumped. Takato couldn't sit still and took a taxi to find Ayagi, asking him where he would like to go on Christmas Eve. Hearing that Azumaya wasn't nearby, Ayagi got a bit crafty. But the next second, a recorder flashed at Ayagi's feet, startling him into picking it up quickly. At that moment, Kurokawa and his date, the best supporting actor, appeared. They weren't lovers, but that didn't stop them from dating today. Partners can change any time. Seizing the moment and expanding networks is the way to go. Takato sighed. Just dealing with one was overwhelming enough. The 3 hesitated, then laughed. He really is a romantic, ha. Takato continued his search, and Ayagi looked at the recorder in his arms, then at the departing vehicle, shaking his head. Azumaya is too cunning. Takato searched everywhere and finally went to the mountain that Azumaya had taken him to before. He thought he was lost and was about to thank the taxi driver for his effort when he realized the driver was actually Azumaya. Seriously, this guy has been following me? It turns out he had also worked at the taxi company. Junta was delighted to see Takato so earnestly looking for him. He had set up fairy lights here just to make Takato happy and had prepared many gifts, including homemade hot cocoa and tickets to Hawaii. Indeed, Azumaya was the one Takato really wanted to spend Christmas with. Embarrassed, Takato bit him, only to be bitten by Junta, the golden retriever. For Junta, just having Takato there made his Christmas joyful. After Christmas, they continued working. Junta and Takato agreed to spend the next few years together, no matter what. However, Takato received a photo from Hasegawa, showing Junta at the scene, eyes shining, during the shoot and car ride. Takato went to Spain alone, shaking his head, ready to forget about sightseeing. He was here to become Spanish. The story began a month ago when Takato and Azumaya were involved in a paparazzi incident. Although they took down their adversary, their own reputations were affected. So, Kazuomi decided to cast them both as leads in a stage play based on a Spanish folk tale about a bride, her groom, and her former lover battling it out. Takato was to play the former lover and Azumaya, the groom. The two were set to battle as rivals, with both ending up hurt, leaving only the bride alive. Azumaya, being of Spanish descent, was quite familiar with the story. Acting was not an issue, but the real challenge was the flamenco dance. Kazuomi is really torturing us. Takato learned quickly, and Azumaya thought his hand movements in the dance were beautiful. However, Takato felt he was far from matching Azumaya, who had learned some steps from his grandfather. The dance teacher, Akiko, was upset, believing that while Takato learned quickly and his movements were beautiful, he lacked the fiery passion needed in his performance. Takato wasn't upset by the scolding and let Azumaya continue training him in dance. Watching Azumaya's dance made Takato more anxious, fearing he couldn't keep up with Azumaya's talent. When the agent found Takato in a bad state, he didn't just sit back. He adjusted Takato's schedule to free up 10 days for a trip to Spain. Damn it, I'm going to break through on sight. Takato was determined not to be left behind by Azumaya, but he only told Azumaya that he was leaving, not where he was going or what for. Azumaya was dumbfounded, suddenly recalling their past breakup. Azumaya felt lost, lamenting, "My wife gone, my wife." Takato began observing the lives of the people around him in Spain, experiencing local food and dance performances. He noticed that the people here were quite tall, which explained why the half-Spanish Azumaya also had a height advantage. Just then, Azumaya heard a commotion nearby. He peeked over and was intrigued by a high-level flamenco solo happening at the entrance of a guitar shop. It was the best dance Takato had seen since arriving in Spain, with impressive technique and rich emotion. An attractive elderly man with white hair even seemed to notice Takato and flirtatiously winked in his direction. If not for a girl cheering excitedly next to him, Takato might have thought the wink was for him. Takato felt that the people here were very warm. For instance, a child proactively greeted him but sneakily stole his ring. This ring was significant, shared with Azumaya, prompting Takato to frantically search for help. Fortunately, the white-haired man caught the child and retrieved the ring. The child claimed it was just a prank, but the elderly man didn't think so and demanded an apology, threatening a curse of eternal loneliness otherwise. The child quickly apologized. To Takato's surprise, the elderly man spoke Japanese and noticed the engraving in Takato's ring, asking if he had a Spanish lover. Takato thought the elderly man seemed like someone out of a painting, captivated by his performance. The man also took a liking to Takato, asked for his name, and introduced himself as Celestino, who owned a tavern in the next town. He invited Takato to visit later. Just then, Takato saw a text from Junta that made him tense up. He immediately asked Celestino if he could go to his tavern right now, and Celestino agreed, mentioning his grandson was there at the moment. Usually Takato wouldn't propose accompanying someone he just met, but he had received a text from Azumaya indicating he was kidnapped and to come to a specific tavern, coincidentally Celestino's. Elsewhere, Ayagi learned from Narumiya that Azumaya had also cleared his schedule and was no longer on set. Kazuomi returned to the company only to find his staff in tears because a top composer, Arisu, had visited. Arisu, known for his high fees, was an old acquaintance of Kazuomi. He sang a tune that made everyone homesick. Kazuomi had to take him to the rooftop to ask why he returned. Arisu frivolously mentioned he might have missed Kazuomi's cigarettes. Confused, Kazuomi confronted him about a past violation, but Arisu avoided the kiss, and instead gave his address, suggesting they could discuss music any time, regardless of the cost. On the other side, Celestino took Takato to a tavern in the neighboring town. Takato said that was far enough because the tavern might be dangerous and could have criminals. Celestino, puzzled, listened as Takato rushed in to save Junta. Upon entering, Takato was surprised to see Junta working as a waiter. Takato was confused. Azumaya said he was just watching the shop. Then, Celestino entered, and both the handsome man and the handsome grandfather stood together. That's when Takato learned Celestino was Azumaya's grandfather. But what about the email? Azumaya explained it was from cleaning during the day and being defeated by dust. However, the person filming was someone else named Antonio, who grew up with Azumaya and had long wanted to meet Takato to see who had taken his beloved angel. Antonio declared he had to confront Takato today. As soon as he finished speaking, Azumaya jabbed a fork at his neck. Antonio admitted he was joking. However, Antonio felt he loved Azumaya more than Takato did, so he challenged Takato to a flamenco dance-off to show his passion. Azumaya looked excited at the prospect of Takato dancing for him. Takato saw this as a good opportunity and accepted the challenge. Antonio borrowed a courtyard and Celestino offered to play the guitar. Takado was nervous, knowing he wasn't skilled in flamenco, but had come to Spain to improve. He didn't want to be left behind by Azumaya, but why was Azumaya here? In the end, Antonio won the dance. He claimed his dance was passionate, but others said Takado's dance was beautiful. They hadn't seen such a beautiful flamenco in a long time, and it far surpassed Antonio's in appearance. Antonio acknowledged Takado's dance was beautiful, but lacked passionate love, saying his feelings were superficial. Takado clenched his teeth. Azumaya then said, regardless of the outcome, he would only choose Mr. Takado. However, Takado took off his ring, conceding defeat, and let Antonio keep it temporarily. Azumaya was upset, touching his empty finger. That night, Azumaya brought alcohol to Takado and shared that Antonio was a professional dancer who usually performed solo. Still, he really liked Takado's dance. It truly had his style, very beautiful. Just like when Azumaya first saw him. Takado clenched his teeth. So what if it's beautiful? He needs a change to keep up with Azumaya's pace. He knew their meeting was no coincidence, and Azumaya had admitted as much. Guessing Takado's destination, he had followed him to Spain. Takado stood up, resolved to do what he needed to do. Azumaya wanted to help, but Takado refused. He felt he must not become a burden to Azumaya. "Brother, that's where you're wrong," Azumaya said, reminding him of their past breakup. As Takado turned to leave, Azumaya instinctively called out to him, then shared his thoughts directly. "Was I too passive?" he asked. He had always said he would never let Takado go. With that, Azumaya quickly tied Takado up in bed with clothes. Takado noticed Azumaya's lonely expression and wanted to hug him, but Azumaya mistook it for an escape attempt. He warned Takado that his grandfather was next door and could hear him if he was too loud. Azumaya didn't want to let go of Takado, fearing he would escape. He seized the chance to dominate him, wishing Takado couldn't live without him, but Takado kept demanding he untie the ropes.
煽ってるんですよね。違くない。煽った。やめない。
Just as I thought, here comes the dark twist. In the end, Azumaya knocked him out, only to find the next day that Takado had run away. Oh no, this could trigger a complete breakdown. Takado went to Antonio for dance lessons and asked to stay with him for a while. Antonio initially wanted to refuse, but his mother, a kind lady, saw Takado's swollen eyes and suggested Antonio help him with ice packs. Takado had gotten Antonio's address from Celestino. Antonio asked if Takado was taking out his frustration on Azumaya for losing to him. Takado admitted it might be the case, but he came to Spain to be with Azumaya. Unexpectedly, Azumaya had followed him. Takado shared that Azumaya had immense talent and would face many responsibilities in the future. He wanted to stand by Azumaya's side and share his burdens, so he couldn't afford to stop progressing now. But why did Azumaya look so lonely? Antonio suddenly asked if Takado had ever shared these thoughts with Azumaya. Is it necessary to say such things? Takado responded. Antonio was speechless. There you have it, a couple who doesn't communicate. Takado felt that voicing it might seem like forcing Azumaya to accept responsibilities. Antonio countered, asking if Takado would feel pressured if Azumaya said the same to him. Takado realized he wouldn't feel pressured. It was just their different nationalities making him reserved and less expressive. Antonio said he and Azumaya used to be very close. Azumaya had even given him a hug, just a friendly one though. Back then, Antonio was small and his mother worried he might be bullied, so she sent him to Celestino to learn flamenco dance. He even had a crush on Celestino as his first love. To earn praise, he practiced hard and grew stronger. One day he saw Celestino dancing with his wife in the courtyard, a dance full of charm and desire, stunningly beautiful. Even as a child, he knew such a dance was only for a lover. So, Antonio experienced his first heartbreak, but didn't give up. He climbed to Celestino's window to watch him dance, and met Azumaya, who was visiting his grandfather during summer vacation. The hug happened when Azumaya caught him as he fell, though it resulted in a fractured left hand. Young Azumaya was really cute. He knew Antonio might like Celestino and admired Antonio's serious attitude towards relationships. Azumaya didn't understand the world through Antonio's eyes and seemed uninterested in the world back then. Years later, those dull eyes were now full of light. Antonio told Takato that Azumaya really cared about him, much more than Takato realized. Takato had never seen Azumaya with dull eyes. He didn't know that side of him. Antonio agreed to help Takato train for a day. Takato ended up dancing all night without rest and got a stern scolding from Antonio. After dancing, Takato left a note and went back, but the pub was closed, and Celestino found him first. They talked while watering the flowers. Celestino asked Takato which flowers in the garden he liked. Takato said he liked the flowers with broad leaves, feeling they had a lot of room to grow. Celestino told him that Azumaya used to say he liked all of them, but actually didn't care much either way. Takato was curious about Azumaya's past. Celestino mentioned his daughter and son-in-law started a business in Japan. Although wealthy, the family rarely gathered together. Azumaya, being quite attractive, drew attention but seemed indifferent to everyone, finding everything boring. Celestino believed this trait might be inherited from himself. He was an orphan and felt rootless, leading a nomadic life, dancing flamenco in pubs and streets for money, even getting involved with wealthy women because he was very handsome. Celestino understood why Azumaya liked Takato. People like them are easily drawn to those with strong inner characters. Takato was like his wife Yachio, who was very passionate when pursuing him and could even track down his whereabouts and destinations. Takato now understood where Azumaya's stalking traits came from. At first, Celestino thought Yachio was just a wealthy, idle tourist who would soon tire of him, so he was not very nice to her. He quickly got beaten up because of his messy relationships with rich women. However, Yachio did not leave him. Instead, she approached him for a talk. At that time, Celestino asked Yachio what the world looked like in her eyes. Yachio brought out a painting she had made for Celestino. He said that his image in Yachio's eyes was so brightly colored it was dazzling. Later, they settled in a new town. Wherever Yachio was, that was his hometown. Takato asked Celestino to let him see the painting Yachio made. Wow, the painting was ugly. Handsome or not, take a glance. If it's ugly, take a glance. So ugly, it's fascinating. Take a longer look. Celestino asked Takato to go to the hillside pub, saying that Takato would find what he was looking for there. As a child, Azumaya always felt his life was monotonous. Others had great emotional fluctuations, but he seemed bored, as if he had no feelings. When faced with confessions, he was indifferent, yet he saw a girl crying. Azumaya thought their emotions were strange, but he could not fit in. The real outsider was himself. Azumaya sat alone on the roadside. Then Takato came by. Takato didn't mention that night, but asked him to drive to the hill. Azumaya thought his life would continue to be dull, but Takato was like a light in his world, instantly breaking the barrier between him and the world. Azumaya took Takato to the pub. Takato had learned a Spanish phrase from Celestino, just right to ask the pub owner to let him see the dancers here. Since flamenco is a local tradition, the dancers danced naturally and passionately. When the dance ended, a regular dancer got up. She would randomly pick a dancer to be her groom and dance with her. This time she chose Azumaya, who entered the door. However, she noticed Azumaya looking at someone else. Azumaya glanced back at Takato. The woman pointed at Takato, saying he was competing with her for the groom. So she wanted to outdance him. Although Takato didn't understand, he knew it was about dancing to compete for Azumaya. Azumaya joked that Takato should dance for him. Unexpectedly, Takato changed his shoes, stuffed his clothes into his arms, and told him to watch closely, because this dance was just for him. Takato despised half-hearted performances. For the first 25 years, his life was like following a script to become an elite. But today, Takato was dancing with love for Azumaya, letting his emotions burst before his reason, releasing his full love on stage. At that moment, Takato was pure, with eyes only for Azumaya. When the dance ended, applause filled the room. The woman offered flowers to Takato, saying he was the real bride and she wouldn't compete with him. Takato handed the flowers to Azumaya and asked if he saw clearly. Could Azumaya hold back? His wife had danced right onto his face. He pulled Takato out of the dance studio, recklessly frolicking outside. Aren't you two supposed to be artists? You can't do this abroad, right? The next day, Takato found Azumaya blowing in the wind on a hill. Azumaya said he used to be just an empty shell, feeling detached from everything in the world. However, after meeting Takato, he realized how dazzling the world could be with him in it. Azumaya expressed his fear of losing Takato. Feeling anxious at the thought, Takato embraced Azumaya, telling him that although they must move forward and may part ways, he would always return to him. He asked Azumaya to do the same, as he couldn't bear to be apart from him. After making a lifelong promise, they returned to Celestino's pub. Celestino teased that Takato had become quite attractive, joking about competing with his own grandson for him. Azumaya, of course, would not allow it, and just then, Azumaya's grandmother Yachio returned. Without hesitation, Azumaya complained to Yachio. Only then did Takato realize Yachio was still alive and heard them affectionately calling each other "my treasure." Takato learned that the inscription on the ring in Spanish meant "my treasure," which made him blush. Later, he went to pay tuition to Antonio, who refused the money and returned the ring to Takato. Azumaya was happy during this time. Takato, wearing the ring, secretly learned engraving from a craftsman. Unaware, Junta kept dragging Takato around Spain. Just before heading to the airport, Junta eagerly asked for the ring. Takato admitted the engraving was a bit of a failure, but still put it on him. Antonio also came to see them off, sharing a strange understanding with Takato. At that moment, Celestino asked Azumaya what flowers he liked. With a smile, Azumaya mentioned the name of the flowers Takato had won for him at the pub. Later, as they boarded the plane, Azumaya took off the ring and noticed the awkwardly engraved "my treasure" inside. His eyes welled up with tears, knowing that as long as Takato was with him, he could continue to love this world. Go on, you two. Off you go.